Alright, viewers, this is Historic TV. I am your presenter as usual. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic, and the topic is called foreign policy. But do not forget to subscribe and of course share and then like the video, because it's going to help us to also continue to bring more to you. And the topic today of a discussion is called foreign policy. And as you can see today, countries across the globe, they are embarking or they are engaging in foreign policy. Today, countries among countries within the globe, they sign a bilateral relationship. That is the relationship between countries. That is why today, as you can see, many countries, for example, Gambia is having embassy in other countries. For example, in Senegal, Gambia also is having embassy, and of course in the in China, Gambia also is having embassy, and in many countries. It's as a result of foreign policy. So foreign policy here is our topic. Now, if we say foreign policy, what do we mean by foreign policy? Foreign policy refers to a whole system of objective that a country pursue her interest with another country to achieve her desired objective. That is called a foreign policy. When the Gambia as a country or any other country pursue her interest with another country through diplomatic means, through peaceful means, that's what they call foreign policy. Or this is whereby a country pursue or followed her interest with another country to achieve her stated objective. That is called foreign policy. And across the globe, we understand that resources are not equally distributed. Perhaps the resources that is in Africa is not in European countries or is not in America. So for resources to be equally distributed, countries have to embark in the foreign policy. And of course, that is why today we can see there is international trade, the exchange, buying and the selling of goods and service among or between two or more countries called international trade. Why do countries embark on international trade? One reason is because there is inequitable distribution of resources. Resources across the globe or resources in the world are not equally distributed. Some countries are called landlocked countries. They are without a river. For example, Mali. But when you look at the Gambia here today, we are blessed with a river, and then we can have access to resources such as fish, and we are also blessed with a black sand, which is a natural resources. But why do countries venture into a foreign policy? What are the means of achieving foreign policy? What are the advantages and the disadvantages of foreign policy? What are the problems of foreign policy? When you look at the African, we have 54 states here in Africa. Each and every state in Africa sign a foreign policy with another different state or with another country, for example, European power. When you look at the Gambia here, there's a foreign policy between the Gambia and China. But of course, we all know that the Gambia cannot trade with China, because China is a very powerful country, it's a very advanced country, technological-wise, educational-wise. So now, when a country is having an interest in another country, there are different ways to achieve that foreign policy. Some countries will use what they call persuasion. What is persuasion? Negotiation. For instance, when Chinese or China as a country or the Republic of China is having an interest here in Gambia, they will use what they call persuasion. They will come and negotiate with the Gambian government and come to term. When they come to term, so they will sign an agreement. So of course there is going to be a foreign policy between the Gambia and China. So they will establish bilateral ties or bilateral relationship in order for them to, to share their common goal or their common objective. So it's another way in which foreign policy is achieved. That is called through persuasion, through negotiation. Countries will send their delegations to another country, just like I mentioned earlier. When Gambia is having an interest, for example, in Senegal, then Gambia will send a delegation to Senegal and talk to the Senegalese government through a diplomatic means, that is peaceful means, to ensure that foreign policy is achieved. And of course, some countries, they believe in the use of violence. For instance, when a more powerful state, they have an interest in the less powerful ones. So this less powerful state, and they refuse to sign, or they refuse to concord, or they refuse to come to terms into the signing of the foreign policy. So this more powerful state, now they will use violence. They will decide to use guns, arms, and ammunition in order to threaten that country to sign a foreign policy. Just like today, as we can see, many African countries are encountering what they call political instability. For instance, we look into what they call Sudan, Darfur. France, they have a great interest in Sudan, Darfur. So in order for them to achieve their aims and objectives, they must have to use force. And to use force means they must have to create tensions and violence. So when that happens now, the government of Sudan will be left with no choice but to sign a foreign policy. This is the reason why in Africa we are not experiencing peace. Why? These European powers that are more powerful and in terms of what they call military-wise, they have a modern weapons like machine guns, rifle, they have it. So now when they want to have our natural resources and then they ask us to sign foreign policy, so the government of African countries refuse. They will use this thing what they call violence. That is why when you look at in this 54 state in Africa, most of these countries, they are encountering political instability here and there. Why? They need raw materials, they need irons, they need golds, they need silvers, they need all these things here. So for them to achieve our foreign policy, or for them to achieve their interest in Africa, they must use violence, they must threaten our government, they must intimidate our government, they must come here with their guns, or they must recruit some people here in Africa, sponsor them, give them money, give them weapons, and let those people to go and attack our government, then uproot our government through power. So in that way, they will achieve their foreign policy. And other countries also, they will decide to use what they call non-violence punishment. In this non-violent punishment, they will decide to boycott that country. For example, if China is having an interest here in Africa, which they are having, I believe. Now, if the Gambia government refuse to venture into a foreign policy with China, so China now will decide to boycott. That is to say, they will not want to trade with the Gambian government. They will not have nothing to do with the Gambian government. They will not give a helping hand to the Gambian government. So when that happens now, as time goes on, then the Gambia as a country will suffer. Our government will not have any help from China. Then they will decide to sign foreign policy. That is called non-violent punishment. It's a way in which a country achieves a foreign policy. And also, countries also will decide, oh, they do achieve foreign policy through what they call threat of punishment. For example, when countries have interest here in Africa, and our African governments refuse, now they will threaten that they are going to punish those African countries. That is to say, they will decide not to have anything to do with those African countries. For example, they will stop their goods being coming from Africa. They will stop giving Africa helping hand. They will stop giving us technical assistance. So when that happens, that country in Africa is going to suffer. So as time goes on, you see that the government of that country cannot able to withstand that one, because our government most often now they find it very difficult to stand alone and to help their citizens, but they will decide to have foreign aid from other countries across the globe. So when that happens, the government is going to suffer. Citizens of that country will going to suffer. So as time goes on, then the government will be left with no choice but to sign foreign policy. So that country will come to Africa now, will decide to have to tap our resources and then thereby achieving their aims and objectives. And of course, there is also another one, which is the most common, that is granting of reward. Every now and then you will see, for example, in Gambia, because the European, for example, the United States of America will decide to give our Gambian government huge amount of money in millions, just maybe to engage in one developmental aspect. And that grant or that reward, it goes with condition. And that condition, they will pursue that condition to achieve their aims and objectives. That is why now you are seeing there is frequent deportation of Gambians in Italy, Gambians in Germany, Gambians in other parts of the West back to Gambia here. Why? Many a times when they give us or when they grant us their reward in high amount of money, they will attack their condition, and our government also will not able to resist. Why? Our government is a government that is not able to utilize the resources that it is having in order to protect and also to support the Gambian people. So most often we depend on rewards, foreign rewards, grants and loans. So in as much as they are helping us, also they also want to pursue their interests here in Africa. Of course, they have to tell us, now we are going to give you this amount of money, and of course in return, then you will start deporting your citizens back to Gambia. If not, you will stop helping. So the government now will sit and consider, either they take the reward, or they let their citizens in Europe. So which is not going to favor, they have to go for the reward. Why? Because Gambia, we only depend on tax. Gambia is a tax country, and even with tax, I believe it is, when it is properly utilized, Gambia will be able to advance to some extent. We look into the aims and the objectives of the Gambia foreign policy. Each and every country is having her own foreign policy, but let's focus today for the Gambia foreign policy. As time goes on, we look at the aims and objectives of different countries, their foreign policy. Part of the aims and objective of the Gambia as a country, her foreign policy, is to contribute in the eradication of colonialism. Colonialism is a direct political rule of a country by a foreign state. It's called colonialism. When the European came after the scramble for and the partitions of Africa in the Berlin 1884-1885, the European now they started rushing to Africa in order for them to have colonies or territories, because the concept was the more lands or the more country a European power colonized, the more powerful she would become. So that is why the French came and had the largest colony here in Africa, and they became the most powerful state. Then the French also came, colonized Africa, and of course have many who had many colony or territory here in Africa. But in West Africa, the British were able to colonize only 4 countries, which is Gambia, and of course Nigeria, Ghana, and of course Sierra Leone. Liberia was never colonized and of course by the British. Why? Because when slavery and slave trade was abolished in 1807, now the European, they decided now to repatriate, to bring back African slave back to Africa. So Liberia served as a checkpoint for the repatriation center for the slave. That's why it was called Freetown, the capital. It is called Freetown. Freetown is a place where African people were of course repatriated back to Africa. So some of the slaves, because of high population, of course lack of space in Freetown, some slaves were brought here in Gambia. And when they came in Gambia, some of them they settled in Batos, in Makati, and of course in Lamen, in Bakau. This were the settlement center when slave trade was abolished in 1807. So part of the Gambia's foreign policy was to contribute in the eradication of colonialism, because Gambia as a country also play an important role to see that African states are free, African states are living under the government of their own making, and Africans are independent, or African states, they are politically independent, socially independent, and of course economically independent. That is part of the Gambia's foreign policy, to contribute or to play an active role, and of course in the eradication of colonialism in Africa. And part of the aims and objective of Africa, or Gambia's foreign policy rather, is to ensure that mutual understanding among countries across the globe. Gambia also is playing an important role to ensure that there is mutual understanding between Gambia and other countries part of the world. That is why today Gambia is having ambassadors in many parts of the world. Why? It's as a result of foreign policy to enhance or to promote mutual understanding between Gambia and of course other countries. For example, Gambia and Guinea-Bissau, Gambia and Cameroon, Gambia and Ghana, Gambia and Nigeria, and even Gambia and other West or countries in the West, for example, in Portugal, countries in France. So Gambia can have a mutual understanding to assist each other, to help each other, to solve each other's problem. That is part of Gambia's aims and objective of Gambia's foreign policy. We also look at part of the aims and objective of Gambia's foreign policy is also to ensure that there is peaceful resolution of conflict, for the Gambia to participate in the resolution of conflict across the globe. For instance, if there is a war in another country, Gambia also can able to mobilize soldiers for peacekeeping mission to ensure that there is peace and harmony across West African sub-region, not only in the West African sub-region, but of course across the entire globe. That is why when there is war, the Gambia will mobilize troops and send them for peacekeeping mission. Why? Part of the aims and objective of Gambia's foreign policy. And of course, we will also look into what they call to establish friendship and then cooperation among member states. That is why Gambia decide to venture into foreign policy in or with other countries, to ensure that there is friendship and cooperation, understanding among countries. Gambia to be a friend with another country that is part of the world, and also to ensure that there is cooperation, which is mutual understanding between Gambia and also other countries that are also part of the world. So these are some of the also Gambia aims and objectives of Gambia's foreign policy. These are some of the things that Gambia want to pursue and achieve with other countries across the globe, to ensure that there is eradication of colonialism, to remove European powers controlling African countries or Africans here in Africa, to ensure that there is enhancement and of course understanding among countries, for Gambia to have a mutual understanding with other countries across the globe, to establish friendship and cooperation among member states. So these are ways in which a country achieve their foreign policy. And this is Historic TV, and of course I am your presenter as usual. But do not forget to like, subscribe and share the video, so that we can able to to continue to bring to you live more fascinating video.